Hi, my name is JonnyLockjaw. Today, I'm going to show you the build that I use while playing Warhammer Darktide. Hopefully you enjoy it, and let's get into it. But just a reminder, if you don't like the things that I like, I don't give a fuck. Alright, so if you see here, I like to run the Blaze Force Sword. I think that is very good. It allows for a lot of good utility if you ever need to get an actual melee as a Psyker, which most of the time you don't really want to do that. But a lot of if I'm not actively throwing the sticks, which we'll get into, I'm usually using the Void Strike Force Staff, which I think is super powerful. I have a lot of clips and video so far of Psyker gameplay where the Void Strike Staff comes in handy a lot. You can use whatever, force staff or gun that you prefer. I prefer this because it allows for a lot of utility, not just for horde clear, but a lot of elites it can take out fairly effectively. Get yourself one of those. Use whatever melee weapon you kind of want. It really depends on you. And then for Curios, what I use a lot is a lot of toughness percentages and a lot of damage resistance and toughness regeneration. For example, here we have toughness regeneration speed, max health, and corruption resistance. Don't focus too much on max health as a Psyker because you're not going to have a lot of max health regardless. We're not building a tank. You're basically a glass cannon. But the way that this build effectively runs is it generates and regenerates its toughness very quickly. So the higher toughness amount that you can get, the better. It just allows you to take more hits without having to worry about the amount of health that you have, because it's going to be minimal regardless of how much health percentage you have. But yeah, let's get into the actual talents here. Okay, so first, this isn't going to be a leveling guide, just to be clear. This is just sort of a template that you should probably be following, at least in terms of the things that you want to get. Now, a lot of these top ones, you can kind of maybe get away with putting somewhere else if you can see yourself in your own gameplay needing that. First, let's go to metal, which is going to be critical hits, replenish 5% toughness. Again, that goes back to the toughness percentages. Increasing the amount of toughness that you can generate is going to be really good. So it also grants 5% increased movement speed for 4 seconds, and it stacks 3 times. It's very good. And on top of that, we got replenish 2.5% toughness for every 10% peril generated. You're going to want that. Replenish 5% toughness for each 10% of peril quelled. Again, very good. You're effectively, especially with the sticks. So we're going to get into that a little bit later down the tree. You're going to be throwing sticks, or just in general, any of your Psyker abilities. You're going to generate a lot of peril, obviously. You're also going to quell a lot of peril. So that's what is going to make this as good as it will be. So it's going to also get replenish 15% toughness on warp attack kill, which effectively is all of them. You're basically always going to be attacking with this if you're not using a gun or a sword. You're basically going to go into Soul Stealer after that, which replenishes 15% toughness on warp attack kill. Now that's effectively everything that you use that isn't a gun or just a basic melee attack. That's a lot. 15%, if you have increased toughness percentages, it's going to be a lot, and that's every kill. And if you run the sticks, you're going to be killing a lot of things very quickly, which means that if you get into a hairy situation and you need a lot of toughness back, you're going to get it. And then this one is killing an elite or a specialist enemy, applies 4 stacks of Soul Blaze. This is for me, this is really the only Soul Blaze aspect that comes into play here. You can again build a different way to get more. This is just the only one. I think that it's good, especially if there's a lot of elites at the higher difficulties. You're going to do more area of effect damage. It's going to clear hordes better. And then you're going to go battle meditations for a 10% chance to quell 10% peril on kill. It's very good. So battle meditation also stacks with quietude. Obviously, with 10% chance to quell 10% peril on kill. When you quell 10% peril, you replenish 5% toughness for each 10% peril quelled. So every 10% chance kill that quells 10 peril, you regain 5% toughness. It's a lot. I know. But we're also going to go this plus 15 toughness, just to branch us off into the first one of these we're going to get, is Assail. This is the thing that makes the money work. You get the sticks, you get the ethereal shards that you throw. For me, I think it just allows for a lot more than the other two will. Smite is good for crowd control, but if I'm being honest, Psyker crowd control is not... You shouldn't really be playing a Psyker if you're trying to CC enemies for other things. At least I think. The Psyker doesn't have enough health to warrant doing that, and it's better as just a giant kill feed monster with the Assail. Even with the Brain Rupture, like Brain Rupture is still 1A, 1B with Assail. I just prefer Assail here, at least for a build like this, because you can warp kill so many different things. And here's the thing that I would recommend specifically. Once you get to this point, as quickly as a 5th level, you want to make sure you get ethereal shards as soon as you, like the next level after you get Assail. Just because projectiles from Assail now pierce additional targets. It allows it to hit more than one enemy more often. It's really good. And again, that feeds into all this other stuff. You can also get quick shards, but what I've noticed is you get them so quickly already that it doesn't even make sense for you to need to do that. The only time that I ever think to myself, wow, I wish I could have more shards, it's in a horde situation, and realistically, like, you just throw all of the sticks that you have out and then switch to a crowd control staff or gun or anything else. It's really that simple. And then once you have sticks again after you've done some horde clear, you can throw them again and then switch back. It's very simple. And then we're going to go 5% toughness damage reduction. I prefer mind in motion here, just because it allows you to go quicker into down here, which is what we'll get into. Mind in motion is your movement speed is not reduced while quelling peril. Very good, especially if you're in a situation where you're being chased by groups of enemies. Slowing down in that situation while you're in need of attacking things with your toughness regeneration. Then you're going to go into Inspiring Presence. It's a 10% toughness replenishment for you and allies in coherency. That seems like not super good, but in this game you should always kind of try to be in coherency with at least one person, which is good. That's what it is that you kind of want in a team-based game like this. Sometimes it makes sense to split up. A lot of the times you're going to have 10% toughness regeneration for you and your allies in coherency just for everyone. It affects everyone. It stacks with other things. It's really good to have. It's just a good team-based thing. But that also kind of just bridges us into the next one, which is Seer's Presence. This is your aura. It's a 10% cooldown reduction on abilities for you and allies in coherency, which goes into this. It's just all aura boosting, all everything. It's really good to have. I'll say Seer's Presence is sort of my personal preference here. I really don't think that 4% critical hit chance is really worth using one of the capstone abilities on. You can kind of get away with maybe 10% extra damage for you and your allies in coherency against elite and specialist enemies. That's really good. But I think just in general, with how good the abilities are, a 10% flat cooldown reduction on all of those for you and your allies is just it's more worthwhile. And that then goes into one with the warp. You gain 10% toughness damage reduction for 10% to 33% based on your current peril. It sounds complicated. It's really not. If you read into that, it sounds like it's a range you get randomly, but it's just from 10% to 33%. You gain toughness damage reduction for the amount of peril that you have at any given time. Obviously, the higher the peril, the bigger your damage reduction is going to be. That doesn't seem like a lot. It's really good to have. Again, I have up, if you go watch those videos, you can see how often I have above 50% peril. Just because you throw the 10 sticks out, you'll have above 50% peril. You're going to have 33% damage reduction. And then you get minus 5% peril generation. Having the ability to throw more abilities out while gaining peril less is good because you have the opportunity to not blow yourself up. If you think you're too good or better than that and you want to just go for the flat 5% damage reduction, go ahead. It's up to you. So here's where it divulges a little bit. This is kind of a personal preference at this junction specifically. Otherwise, you could go into Scryer's Gaze, but I don't really think that is super great. But I like the shield because there's enough situations on the maps where you need some protection from a lot of things. So this is really good because not only can enemies not shoot into it, you can shoot out of it. You can also technically shoot into it. I know that enemy bullet or projectiles can't pass through it. Grenades can, but like projectiles as in like bullets and stuff cannot. So I augment Telekine Dome, which again turns it into a bubble with Sanctuary, which kind of goes into like the party buffing that we've been talking about so far. Allows allies inside your Telekine shield to replenish 10% toughness. It's just really good to use if you have it up, because you can regenerate it pretty quickly if you kill enemies quickly enough. Again, with the 10% cooldown reduction, it's worthwhile to use. But not only does it replenish 10% toughness each second, which can be up to 200% toughness, but when your shield breaks, it dissipates. All allies inside gain 50% toughness damage reduction for 5 seconds. Now, keep in mind that stacks with all the other toughness damage reduction that you provide, on top of all the toughness damage reduction that you give to yourself with all the buffs on the top. So then we're also going to go to, and again, peril generation minus 5%. Again, I think it's just good to be able to use your peril generating abilities more. It just allows you to do that. We'll do this break first, just because it's a little simple. There's a 10% health, and then up to 10 to 20% damage for all sources based on your current peril. If you can keep your peril higher with less peril generation, you can keep your damage reduction, your toughness damage reduction, say that 5 times fast, higher. On top of being able to quell, which it generates toughness. It's just really good. So we're going into Puppet Master after this one. So it's 50% radius for your coherency aura. So I'm pretty sure it's 50% increased radius for your coherency aura. It doesn't say that. Solidity, increased quell speed by 30%. Quelling generates toughness. It gives you everything back, plus 15 toughness. But, I mean, you don't have any choice, really. So then we go into Warp Siphon. This is your key capstone that you're going to want to get as quickly as possible, but however you can and want. So this is killing an elite or specialist enemy gains you a warp charge for 25 seconds, stacking 4 times. Your next combat ability spends all available warp charges to reduce the cooldown of the combat ability by 7.5% per warp charge. So this is very good. Now, that might sound a little confusing. I'll try to break it down a little bit. For 25 seconds, you can stack up to 4 of these, and we'll get, I think, your next combat ability spends all available warp charges to reduce the cooldown of that combat ability by 7.5% per charge. Now, if you have 7.5, increase that 6 times. If you're not good at math, like I am, each stack is 7.5, so if you have 2 stacks, it's 15%. If it's 3 stacks, it's 22.5%, and if it's 4 stacks, it's 30%. Now again, keep in mind that I run 6 warp charges, so if I have up to 6, it's 45% cooldown reduction on the bubble. And when you use your bubble shield, again, that's the combat ability that it's reducing the cooldown to, it again allows you to regenerate toughness. It allows your teammates to regenerate toughness. It also gives you plus 50% toughness damage reduction every time you drop this. It's really important to kind of keep this in mind when you're using those abilities, because you can use your bubble shield and almost immediately gain it back. Again, that goes into the cooldown reduction on abilities anyway. So you're already getting a 10% cooldown reduction. You're going to just increase it every time you drop it. You want to be trying to use that as often as you can, but keep in mind using it in a smart situation. Sometimes I've been able to use it and then use it again before the first one even wears out. You can oftentimes get them back so quickly, it almost feels like you can use them all the time. It's really good. It's really empowering. So this one is Inner Tranquility. That's the next keystone. After that, it's the modifier. The peril generation reduction. 6% peril generation reduction, again, feeds into being able to use your warp kills or your warp abilities to kill more enemies quicker, which generates toughness. This is really good for a lot of reasons. I think that it's better than replenish 30% toughness over 5 seconds on gaining warp charge. I think that that's better in terms of all of that. So this is Empyrean Empowerment. This increases all base damage by 4% for each warp charge again. So yeah, this is just the next one. After this split, you have to choose this one. It just increases all damage by 4%. Really good. Again, with 6, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. Yeah, that's actually quick math. There you go. if you run 6. You don't have to run this. I think that it's good because it just makes all this other stuff better. Then we go into Psychic Vampire. Whenever you or an ally in coherency kill an enemy, you have 4% chance to gain a warp charge. You can kind of run into a situation where you aren't the one last hitting elites, or enemies aren't spawning, etc., etc. And you, I assume, again, have a 50% increased coherency aura, and you should be trying to be in coherency more with everything else that we've talked about already. It's good. You want this. And this is going to go into Warp Battery. I think that that's good to have in general. You don't necessarily need the 6. You can put this somewhere else. Like if you wanted to get critical chance or that, or go up here and get any of these other ones. This is again a baseline for how it is that I like to play. At least in this scenario, I think for the way again that I have my build set up, I don't use this because I very rarely kill an enemy with Soul Blaze. That's what triggers this effect. If you say don't run the bubble shield and you use Venting Shriek, it might be worthwhile to actually use that, because this goes into giving people Soul Blaze when you hit people with Venting Shriek. It might be worthwhile to actually use this as opposed to this. But again, because I generate, the only Soul Blaze thing that I use is this one, which is kill enemies or elites or specials. I very rarely kill enemies with Soul Blaze, so it doesn't make sense to use that. That's what I do. I'll do a quick... Well, I guess I'll try to do a quick scroll down just to sort of summarize the tree for anybody. And then... Yep. That's what the tree looks like, just in its totality. I unfortunately can't just shoot it all the way out. I wish I could, but that's the limitations of this. Oh, God. Thank you so much for sticking with me with that. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, go ahead and leave them down in the comments. Don't be afraid, again, to like, follow, and subscribe if you made it all the way down here. Thank you again. I genuinely appreciate it. Send this to a friend that you think has a shit Psyker build. I mean, how do they fare with that? Once again, my name is JonnyLockjaw. Do me a favor, don't die, and I'll see you in the next one.